So you just got yourself into an old Ford IDI diesel pickup, and you want to make some power. So how do you do that? So right off the bat, I'm going to come out and say it. These don't make very good power. You can throw 15 to 20 grand at one of these and not make 500 wheel horsepower. In that department, they are worse than the 7.3 Power Strokes by far. Of course, these also do not have a computer, so you take away any ability for like a hydro chip or a tuner. So when you get down to the basics on a diesel, what do they need? They need fuel and they need air. Now, as far as the naturally aspirated IDIs go, there's only so much you can do to make power out of them. There's really only one thing, and you're not going to see much of a difference. But that is coming in here and turning up this injection pump. Now, these fuel injection pumps are statically timed left to right. The more you advance it towards the passenger side, the more you are advancing the injection pump timing towards the driver's side retards it. But nobody really cares about that when they say turning up the fuel on the IDI. So what do they mean by that? So if you come to these injection pumps over on the passenger side, okay, we're over on the passenger side. If you look down here, there's a triangle port on this fuel injection pump right there. Now you've got to take this cover off, and there's kind of a little notch in there, kind of a key type of deal. And when that is at the top, that is when your injection pump is at top dead center, where you can turn the fuel up on your IDI. Now in that injection pump housing, there is a little Allen head screw, and that is what turns the fuel up and down. Okay, so we got turning up the fuel out of the way. That's really the only thing you can do on a naturally aspirated IDI, and pretty much it's a waste of time because all you're going to do is smoke more anyway. So then we get into the turbo kits. In 93 and 94, the IDIs came optioned as a factory turbo from Ford. The kits were ATS turbo kits. If it's a real factory turbo kit, this would have a Ford on it and not an ATS brand on it. This is an 093 ATS kit, which is almost identical to the factory Ford kit, which was made by ATS, other than a couple little things like the downpipe and little tiny other stuff. So ATS, as far as I'm aware, made 3 different kits, the 085, the 088, and the 093. The 093, like I said, is pretty much identical to the factory turbo kit, and it is the one that is most easy to source parts for. Other than the ATS kits, you also have the Banks turbo kits, which you can still buy new. Now, Banks and ATS are the most well-known big companies that made them, but then Hypermax also made a turbo kit. Some of them came intercooled. As far as parts availability on those, I'm not really too sure. I haven't looked into the Hypermax stuff all that much. All I know is they're out there. There's also several other ones that were made back in the 90s that I'm not very familiar with, so I'm not even going to name them. Now, as of today, there are 2 big aftermarket performance companies for the IDIs. Those being R&D, which is Justin Anderson in Wyoming, and Classic Diesel Designs, CDD, which is down in Texas. Now, there's a big debate between the two, lots of kind of throwing harsh words back and forth from the fan bases, not a whole lot from the 2 actual companies. I have bought parts from both places. I've talked to Justin Anderson a ton, haven't done a whole lot with CDD. In fact, I haven't actually owned any performance parts from them. I just got my 3G alternator kit from them, which has been great. I haven't had any issues. Only issue I had with them was I couldn't get them on the phone, but lots of people also have that issue with Justin Anderson. I myself have not had that issue. So anyway, you get a nice Banks kit or ATS kit, the turbo kit, and you will pretty much double the factory power output of one of these. Turn the fuel up a little bit, you'll tow way better, you'll get better fuel mileage, it'll sound a lot cooler. But say you want to go bigger. Say you want to be intercooled, you want a bigger injection pump, you want a different style turbo. This is where Classic Diesel Designs, R&D, those kind of guys come in. So on this engine, I have R&D's hot side turbo kit, which comes with exhaust manifolds, up pipes, oil feed line, oil drain line, and then a T3, T4 turbo pedestal. Now this turbo here is an S261 turbo that Justin sourced for me, Justin R&D. It's a 0.61 intake side, 0.83 hot side. This is a 90cc injection pump. And then as you can see here, I have Justin's manifold, which allows me to be intercooled way easier. I haven't ran through a 6.0 intercooler right here. So say you wanted to absolutely go balls to the walls with an IDI, make as much power as you could. Where would you start? Well, number one, you start with a 7.3 turbo block, which came in 93, 94. There's a couple little upgrades. The pistons are a little stouter, the rods are stouter. Anyway, the most important part about them is that you can retrofit the 7.3 Power Stroke rods into them, which are much stronger. So you start at the base with the 7.3 Power Stroke rods, which I do not have. Then you do a girdle kit, which I do not have. After you do a girdle kit, you move up and you get a different camshaft, which I do have. Now you change the camshaft, so then you change the valve springs to Comp 910 valve springs. They came with the 7.3 Power Strokes, and then you add a 30,000 shim to the exhaust side. Of course, you're going to want head studs, preferably from ARP. Classic Diesel Design sells them from Gator. I'm not much of a fan of that. ARP is pretty much where it's at for those. So we move up from the camshaft to the injection pump. Now for the injection pumps. For the injection pumps, you're going to have to stay between R&D and CDD. I believe Justin offers up to a 150 pump, and I think Classic Diesel Designs goes up a little higher, but I'm not really too sure on that. So you get a big old whopping injection pump. Then you're gonna wanna block off this mechanical fuel pump plate down here. Get yourself some e-fuel action. My e-fuel is Justin Anderson's at R&D. It's been great. So you got a big old pump, then you're gonna want some stage 1 injectors. I know R&D offers some. I'm not too sure about CDD. I have stage 1s in here. Bonus points for billet return rails because they're cool. So you do all that stuff. You could throw some like safe pistons in there, drop the compression a little bit if you want. So you do all that, then you're gonna want a big turbo, obviously. Now, like I said, this is an X261 turbo. Of course, you could be cool and try to run compounds, but there's really no room in here for those. So then you throw a big S300, maybe even an S400 turbo on there. Of course, it's gonna smoke quite a bit and it's gonna lag a little. I mean, at least a little bit. But God willing, that whole entire process should get you to around 400 wheel on an IDI. If you want to add up all the parts and the cost and all that stuff, you're going to be looking at least 15 grand into it. If you do it twice, you get more points. It adds up more. Ask me how I know. I've got that much into this one, and I don't even have like the big stuff. I got like the medium, like half reliable stuff, you know? Of course, you do all that work, and it might not make 1,000 wheel horsepower, but you're going to have a pretty fun, quick old rig. Of course, all mechanical, no computers anywhere. And really, you should be set. Of course, when you're doing that kind of stuff, a lot of the time you're going to want to overbuild. But if you want to just send it, you know? So anyone that wants to make like really big power, I'm sorry for, you know, discouraging you and whatever. I don't want to be that way, but let's be honest, a lot of guys get into IDIs because they're the cheapest diesels around. Of course, they're simple and easy to fix until you start crowding the engine bay with turbo intercooler pipes, air intake stuff. All of a sudden it gets a whole lot more difficult and there's a whole lot more stuff to go wrong. So if I was going to say peak efficiency, peak reliability, where's the middle at? I would say as far as least problems and the easiest things to get parts for, you know, if you just want to easily double the power output of one of these without breaking the bank and without, you know, taking all your reliability away. Easiest way to do that would be to get a, you know, ATS 093 kit or a factory turbo kit. Hell, just a factory turbo IDI, that works too. Take one of those, get a drop-in turbo, turn the injection pump up a little bit. Stay non-intercooled, that way you don't have the pipes all over. I mean, granted, they look cool, and I wouldn't run this one without an intercooler, but if I was just, you know, if I was meeting in the middle, that's what I would do. So while I'm walking over to the parts pickup here, I'll just name off a couple of the IDI builds that are, you know, pretty cool. And I'll try to find some pictures of them so I can put them in here. A couple of them are on YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Start with Aaron Yoder. Aaron Yoder's got a two-tone blue and white IDI, and he's intercooled with an ATS 093 kit. Then he's got a drop-in S257 turbo from Justin. Jeff Clark's got a dually crew cab aero nose pickup with a 7.3. He's running R&D's hot side kit with an HX35. He has one of the best build videos out on YouTube. He's got a lot of input in there, a lot of info, and it's a gorgeous Centurion pickup. If you want to check him out, check him out. Brian Grilly has a couple different builds. He's got one that's running 21 pounds of boost on stock head bolts. He's got another IDI that's got twin turbos, and they're not compounds, they're bi-turbos, which is just, it's more for the hell of it than anything else. You know, it's not the most efficient thing. I don't want to throw myself in there, but you know, I got a 90 pump and S261 on a hot side kit, intercooled with a 6.0 intercooler. Justin Anderson was making 400 wheel in a Bronco with a 4R100 before it slung a rod out the side of a block. He also had a compound turbo set up at one point for something. And then CDD also has a couple rowdy ones on YouTube I'm not super familiar with, but they're all pretty cool. There's a video of one of them doing a roll and burnout going down the road. And of course, there's a lot of guys out there that don't make any content on them, so you don't even know anything about them. Lots of guys with cool homemade turbo kits. So yeah, anyway, hope this video kind of helped you guys out, gives you some info. Like I said, if you're NA, just turn up the injection pump. If you want to smoke a little more, watch your EGTs. If you guys are NA and want to go turbo for cheap, find a used ATS turbo kit, throw a drop-in turbo in it, or just have the original one rebuilt. If you want to go balls to the walls, call up Justin or CDD and get yourself one of their turbo kits and throw a big turbo on there with a bigger injection pump, and you'll be perfect off. But be careful going over 15 PSI without head studs. 6.9 guys, even with head studs, you're really not recommended to go over 15 PSI. Yes, the cylinder walls might be thicker, but the head bolts are actually smaller in diameter. They're not a 1/2 bolt, they're a 7/16 inch bolt, and because of that, they lift the heads easier. But lots of guys are running a Banks turbo on a 6.9, you know, or the ATSs also. Banks made one at the time, and so did ATS. Just keep the wastegate down, watch your PSI. You don't want to go over 12, or you probably will lift the heads, and that won't be very fun. So anyway, hope this video helped you guys out. I'll also throw my build list down in the comments for any of you guys that want something similar to mine or just curious about what I've done to mine. I'm not going to throw dollar signs next to any of it because I don't want to know how much it cost, even though I've got a rough ballpark and it's way more than I wanted to. We'll see you all next time.